When would you like to start? I got bored there too. Curiosity is both my superpower and also my nemesis, just seeing people's whole houses on the sidewalk. I just knew on my gut it was the right thing to do. If I can't go this way, how can I get around it? When you just do it again and again and again and again, it just gets easier. Sometimes you don't have to have the solution. You don't need to know what the answer is. Don't think you're on your own. Just ask. It's humbling, it is beautiful, and it's human. It taught me how much power is in our community.
I will deal with it later.
And get on with work. I still have to work. I still have to be a mum. I still have to look after the house. Because if I'm helping you, it's not about me.
You're what I would call a compulsive connector. Hello everyone, my name's Graham Strang, and I hope my younger self is listening. Today's guest is the definition of backing yourself into building something meaningful out of life's curveballs. From graphic design to corporate innovation to photography and storytelling. She's turned resilience into a brand that empowers and connects. A military wife, an award-winning business owner, and a creative force. Please welcome Kat from Foodie Shots. Welcome.
Thank you.
You ready?
As ready as I'll ever be.
Excellent. Can I get right into it?
Oh, sure.
Hey, let's go.
Why not?
Let's go back a little bit. What shaped your creative soul and business mindset early on?
So I have a bit of a topsy-turvy growing up. I'm actually a Kiwi. You wouldn't know it unless I get tired and have a few wines.
So I don't talk rugby with you at all?
No, that's okay.
No, not on my side.
Oh,
Okay, yeah, just noted.
But I came over here when I was 2, and a man that, so Dad, the man that I call Dad, actually brought my mum and I over here when I was 2, and we lived on a farm. He built the family home with his bare hands, sheep and lucid. So my childhood was around, I thought it was the best childhood, running in paddocks and chasing kangaroos and field mushrooms and all that sort of thing. And but then I think Mum realised that Dad was just a friend, and then she met Brian, and so we spent my teenage years in Melbourne. So I've had the best of both farm and city.
New Zealand, Dubbo, Melbourne.
Yeah.
Now that is that doesn't get your creative going, because there's 3 totally different.
Oh yeah. And I really have a lot of respect for Brian, Mum's husband, now, because I was the eldest and I was only just 13. So 3 children under 13, any man taking on that sort of responsibility, I take my hat off, and he's a wonderful man. So, but I guess what you were sort of alluding to is the dynamics and where creativity came from. Is, I think, growing up on the farm, you have an appreciation of how hard it is to get a meal, to food. I mean, I remember when Dad and Mum were shooting kangaroos and ducks for food, and in the good old chicken without its head running around the farm and things like that.
That is one of life's experiences.
Oh yeah. And fighting bushfires, making sure the house doesn't burn down. Mum and I think I was 8, and we were with wet wheat sacks trying to get the fire out. So I think I've been blessed as a child to grow up with that, and then go into the city, and that's where I did my uni years, and I did graphic design. I think the creative side has come. Mum's always been in business. They've always had small business, both Mum and Dad. And my nana was always a gardener. She always had the most beautiful garden. And we spent a lot of time in that with my nana.
So you'd say that those 2 are your main influences on what's brought you to here?
Yeah.
What's something little from each of them that you remember daily?
Mum is cooking, food. It's so important to sit around the table with a family, and that's why I think it's probably important to me to have my dining room table clear. It annoys me, and I think that's probably why. And Nana was manners in the garden. Just like I remember always going over, because primary school was across the road, and then Nana's was here, so every afternoon after primary school I'd go across to Nana's and have sayos and Milo. And
what did you have on your sayos?
Vegemite.
My grandmother was cheese and tomato.
No, Vegemite.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, so I think it was just being able to be raised also by my grandparents, I think was very special. I feel sad because my kids have missed out on that because we married military, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, but they didn't grow up as young ones around grandparents. So, yeah.
Look, and that's challenging at times. There's so many people that grow up with both sets and away they go, and there's others that, they might only get one grandparent or if any, just depending on their age.
Well, I mean, blessed. I have 3 fathers, so therefore I had a big family.
That's sort of where I pity your husband a little bit. He wasn't outnumbered at all.
No.
I'm sure Brian was kind to him.
Yes, he was. He was very kind.
Not too threatening.
No, not at all. He was so docile. It's my mother that was threatening. But anyway.
Yeah. It says one thing I learned very early on, you got to get mum on side. Dad is secondary.
Yes.
Then you talked about your design side. So you got into pharmacy. There was a fair bit of corporate innovation, but then there's the design. How did you end up encompassing all of that and then getting to Foodie Shots?
Oh. Okay, so I married, Sonny whipped me off my feet in my second year of uni, so I was still studying design then, and that's a story on its own, just owed to the Greyhound bus, that's all I'll say. And when I left, I landed, I've always been quite determined in where I want to go. Very goal driven, and I always wanted to work in a beautiful Melbourne design studio, and I got that. I worked with a lovely man, Daniel, in Ilk Studio, and we worked on Mecca and Filler and Scanlon and Theodore, and it was so much fun, but then marrying the army and getting moved around, it's actually quite hard to build up a design portfolio when you're young. So therefore, pharmacy became my go-to because it was the most easiest job. I could walk into any pharmacy and I'd have a look at them and I'd scout them out. I'd actually scout them out and go, yeah, I might want to work here. And then I'd say, I think I can work here. This is what I can offer you. And most of the time they'd say, when would you like to start? And I'm like, great.
So what did you do in the pharmacy? What was actually your...
I worked, started off as pharmacy assistant, then I got bored, did natural remedies, so I studied that, did makeup, did first aid, but dispensing was one of my favourite things because it had a purpose, depending on what medicine actually helped someone get better. And I always realised I would never be a nurse, I would never be a vet, I'd never be at that pointy end of life, but everything in between, helping people and making them feel better, has always been something that I've enjoyed to do. So I think that customer service part of pharmacy is really important. That's carried right through, is learning how to build rapport with people.
Oh, especially in that situation too, because I think about half the people who are collecting prescriptions, half of them are nervous, half of them don't quite know what's happening. No,
they're scared. It could be their, family or siblings, and they're helping, someone that's not well. I mean, it can be really scary for them. And I think by building up all that rapport and understanding how to connect with people carried me through. So when I did go into Suncorp as a claims assistant, I actually lost the ability to read people because I lost the body language. It was all phone. And so you develop those skills, but I got bored there too. So,
I was about to say, I reckon you would have got bored there fairly quickly.
Yeah. And I sort of bucked the trend. I always ask why. So curiosity is both my superpower and also my nemesis, because I always ask why and how can we do this better and why are we doing it that way. And that's why I left pharmacy, because I got as far as I could and without having to go back to uni. And I wasn't going to become a pharmacist. And I went, nah, time to leave. So, in Suncorp I got bored, and then because I was challenging everything, so then they put me in change management and then in all these things. And then I went up into innovation space, which was probably my favourite part because it was more about designing products for Suncorp and understanding the customer again, understanding human behaviour and why do you buy a certain product and what are you actually needing and how does that impact you. So we did a lot of human design.
Isn't it? It's almost scary once you get into what triggers human nature to do things. We do it in here.
Oh,
absolutely. Even the way we've laid this shop out is around human nature, which way people turn, in which they go.
Yeah.
People will naturally turn right.
Yeah. And they say that they won't, but you just watch them and you observe, and they do exactly the opposite of what they say they're going to do.
Oh, and sorry, cameras, but literally they turn right up there and you watch them, they walk down those shirts and then they follow the outside of the shop around.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. So we've actually adjusted some of the layout to work with that.
Yeah. No, so I love that part, learning about the human behaviour and the psyche, and from a marketing point of view. So then it comes all back from the design. So you couple the design, and then the pharmacy bit, which is all human, is there as well, and the caring and the rapport, and then you know, going back to Suncorp, I met some of the most humbling experiences is picking up a call when someone's just had a fatal accident.
Yeah.
You know, being able to help them as much as you can on a phone, to the point of going up to Townsville during the one of the cyclones. We were part of the group that went up there, and just seeing people's whole houses on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
You know, that's just devastating. They come here and come to you, you know, to a warehouse and saying, I need to lodge a claim, and they've got nothing.
And they've got nothing, and they've not just lost a couch or a TV.
No.
There's so many life memories and things.
All the photos, everything.
So, and there's not much you can do about that.
No.
But you have to consider that when you're talking about replacing the couch with the TV.
Yeah.
So there, in my notes here, it says there was a redundancy that launched the business.
So while I was at Suncorp, I was doing photography on the side as well as our side hustle. And that all came about because Sonny, my husband, military, and he had a few deployments. So we had a few overseas trips, and he really got the travel photography bug, and I sort of lost the camera for a bit. He sort of took the camera off me and took over. And then when we came back, he was really into it, and friends of ours asked us to do weddings and all that sort of stuff, and it just seemed to snowball. And so the business was raising, and every time we did a wedding, I'd always end up in the kitchen, or I'd end up doing the details, or I'd take focus on the food and all that sort of thing. So I was gravitating towards that, and I started to build more of a portfolio around people with products and food and all that sort of thing. And so working at Suncorp and driving to Brisbane 3 or so times a week for a full-time job there, plus my business was actually getting quite more, you know, a lot more traction. And yeah, I did a dream board with another business that's here, and I really wanted a studio. It was, you know, set your goals. And that was one of the challenges. Set a goal, a big audacious goal. And I went, yeah, studio, my own studio. I thought, how am I ever going to afford that? Like, yeah, no, whatever. And I had it on my fridge. And just out of shits and giggles, I actually got a quote. And I went, oh, let's just put a figure on it. Let's see what it's going to actually make it real. And in September of 2019, I actually got an offer of redundancy, and it was exactly to about $1,000, the amount that I needed for my studio.
The universe is a very strange.
I went, okay, I'm listening. And so I jumped. And then COVID hit.
Yep.
So my studio was due to be built in March. And I remember the conversation I was having with my financial advisor. She said, Kat, I think, you know, you probably should just hold on to that money. And I went, nah. Thanks for the advice, but no thanks. I'm going with it. I know we pay you a lot of money to tell us advice, but I'm going to ignore it all.
So when did it get built then?
In March.
In March?
I stuck to it. And there was a couple of reasons I did that. Is because, I just knew on my gut it was the right thing to do for me. And also, I had, you know, 5 or 6 tradies relying on that in a time when there was a lot of uncertainty. At least I knew for that 6 to 8, 9 weeks that they were working on my studio. So, you know, plumbers, floor, carpenters, all that.
And you would have loved the process of watching it all just slowly come together, all the bits coming together. And I'm surprised you got anything else done, because I could see you sitting here like this going, oh, that's the next bit and the next bit. Well, that's not quite how I wanted it to look.
There's actually some interesting photos in the fascia, but you'll have to ask my husband about those and the builders. Yes, if it ever comes down for some reason, I doubt it, because the engineer that created it has got like 1.8 metre foundations. It ain't going anywhere. So, but yes, you'll have to have that conversation with Sonny.
I'm going to do that.
So yeah, it did get built, and I'm so glad it did, because realistically, if we had waited, it would have cost us easily 40% more. And as you know, money there, money will go.
Yeah.
So, no, it needed to be done. And I'm glad it did, because I'll never look back.
What lessons have you learned through trial and error that, have created your roadblock, have actually gone, actually, I can push that to one side and I can move forward?
Roadblocks. And I know when you asked me to maybe talk on here, and, the title is The Hard Way, and I'm like, I've actually been really blessed. And I'm thinking, I don't see it as a hard road, right? But yeah, like in business, there's always challenges, but I've always seen them as opportunities to go, so how can we do it this way? If I can't go this way, how can I get around it? Or actually, if I'm butting my head up against something constantly, am I actually meant to do it? And I think listening to intuition is really a big thing. And when you're a sole trader, sometimes you don't take your own medicine.
My gut is my advisory panel. If I have an idea, or someone says, my gut says that's a great idea, I will roll with it.
Yeah.
If my brain says it's a good idea, I ask my gut next.
So I think as we get older, and I know it's the old adage, you can't put an old head on young shoulders and all that sort of thing, right? And what I feel is, in my 30s, there was a lot of questioning of self, a lot of growing, and that's, because I was still at Suncorp and learning all these new things. I had to get into leadership. I didn't even know how to network before, like 218. Like, thought of going into a room was huge for me. I'd get sweats. I was at Suncorp, and this lady, one of my mentors, she said, Kat, you're going to this networking event. And I went, nah, it's okay, I don't need to. She goes, no, if you want to get up the ladder, you need to go to this networking event. I went, okay. And I remember, I need to be seen. And it's the last thing I ever wanted to do. Probably why I'm behind the camera, not in front of it. And I remember walking towards this door for the networking, and I could just feel myself getting smaller and smaller, and the air getting heavier and heavier. And my mentor was behind me. I didn't know she was. She goes, Kat, get in there. And I went, oh, because I was ready to turn around and go home. And she goes, get in there.
Just the panics.
Yeah, the panic. And I'm like, okay. I think I only lasted 20 minutes. But, and that was a pivotal point, because when you just do it again and again and again and again, it just gets easier.
Yeah, becomes natural.
It just becomes natural.
It's the repetitive part of it.
Yeah, and as you said, you do these podcasts, and every single time you do something different, because you're learning all the time. If you do that same thing all the time, it gets boring. And I think one of my biggest of recent opportunities for lots of challenges was my Empowering Women exhibition that I held last year. It was on multiple levels, but I learnt, because I'd never done an exhibition. I've always been business.
Yeah.
I create a product to make money. And this was the first time I had a conversation with Alex from Tinker. I so respect that woman. And she goes, Kat, stop looking at this as a business. It's not a business thing. Treat it as though you're an artist. You are an artist. Allow yourself the permission to be an artist. And I think those words, when she said she gave me permission to be an artist. And I went, okay. And what happened after that, everything just flowed. Because I was looking for the solution all the time.
Yep.
Sometimes you don't have to have the solution. You don't need to know what the answer is. Sometimes it's just a matter of telling your story to people and getting them to come along that journey with you, and they want that journey to succeed. So therefore, they help you. So you say,
well, you even look at the sponsorship side. Look at
yes,
myself, Campbell from ALE is another one.
Yeah.
You told the story to both of us, and we went, well, so what do you need?
I remember that night. I had you around for dinner, and I'm sitting at the table, and I'm telling you about it, and Tila kicks me. She goes, well, just ask. And I went, what do you mean? I mean, what do you mean? I had not even contemplated, because it's not in my nature to ask for things. And that was a big lesson is I was just telling my story and people wanted to be part of it.
Yep.
So when it means something and it's bigger than you, it becomes part of the computer.
What's the worst answer you get?
You get no, right? So it was a huge lesson, and I was so grateful, to businesses like you and to ALE. And I remember that when I was, because one of the things that we needed to do was the big banners, and I thought, how am I going to afford this? And so I asked again. I thought, how am I going to do this? And he said, tell me the story, similar to you. And in the end, he said, Kat, I'll just do them for you.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. I've got it covered. And so people, it's so humbling. And I think, yes, it's one of the biggest lessons I think a sole trader can take away from is actually don't think you're on your own. Just ask.
So would you consider that Women Empowering Project a success?
Oh, it is still a success. The women I had, each in their own right, were quiet achievers. Some of them, people didn't know. And the ripple effects of the empowering women has been profound. Like, for instance, and people may not know, is one of my women, Gay Hold. She was, not leader. She was managing all the volunteers at the hospital foundation. Beck, one of my other ones, and that's an interesting story on its own. And I might tell it in a moment, but they had never met. But because of that exhibition and because of the story, Beck, who was she had only just been diagnosed with terminal bowel cancer. And as a result of the story, Gay asked Beck to be the ambassador for the hospital foundation. And the impact that Beck has had on so many people has been
profound.
It's just profound. Like, it's humbling, it is beautiful, and it's human. Like, she just puts so much human into something that we just don't even want to talk about.
To be really honest, if that ever happened to me and I could treat it half as well as she did, I would be happy.
Yeah.
I saluted her the whole way because it was magnificent.
And it's interesting how Beck came along. Again, this is about intuition and just going with it, and the universe has your back. So,
for those who are not understanding, Beck has now passed away.
Yeah, so Beck's passed 2 weeks ago now. But yeah, so she put in a good fight.
Absolutely. Her attitude to the fight was just, that's what the mid I mean, and just the way she...
I think she passed with a smile on her face. Like, she just had the smile she always had, regardless of what was going on, was just amazing. Nothing was ever too much for her. It was, yeah. But I remember I had my 5 women and I needed 6. And the whole premise of the Empowering Women was your story had to give me goosebumps. Because goosebumps is actually the body's reaction to the emotion awe. It's the only way. We get either cold or it's awe. And I wanted that awe-inspiring feeling of people's stories. And I remember the call, Beck rang me up and she goes, Kat, I'm just curious if you still do boudoir photography. And I said, well, I do for my friends. I don't advertise it. It's something that I do personally. It has to tell the story and it has to connect. She goes, well, I'm not sure if you know, but I've only just been diagnosed and I want to show women that it can't take your beauty away from you. And I went, oh my God, you are my 6th girl. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, I have not been able to find my 6th lady. I don't know why, because we were running out of time. I said, you're it. I said, you are wanting to empower other women. That is the epitome of everything that this whole exhibition.
Isn't it amazing how the universe gives?
It's like, I get goosebumps now. So, so we've probably gone off track there, but I think the exhibition It taught me to be ask. It taught me how much power is in our community. We don't need a whole lot of money. We just need the people, the right people around us. We can do anything. And there's another project that I'm working on that is an example of that as well. That we'll talk about that. Yeah.
And I mean, this is where I was coming to with you talking about this is, you're talking about pivoting and pushing.
Oh, yeah.
That project was probably summarizes a lot of the pivoting and the pushing because you had so many moving parts, but also so many moving people to try and, pardon me, line it all up. And then it just took off from there.
Oh, yeah, because I just didn't do an exhibition.
No.
I did workshops as well and ran,
Oh, I didn't look at it all and go, this woman is crazy.
And then I also ran, empowering women photography sessions whilst we were there. So it was amazing space, the Lighthouse Gallery, to be able to hold the workshops amongst those huge banners and have those empowering women looking over you and envelope. I can tell you now the energy in that lighthouse by the end of that exhibition, because it ran for 20 days, you could feel the energy in it by the end of it. It was just amazing.
It makes what these projects so amazing. So that was a huge success for you. But you had other passion projects that weren't quite such a success, and you had to find a way to let them go.
Oh, yes. Let them go.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah. So I had this idea because I was fed up with seeing, and that's how photography actually came about for me, because I was the designer, right?
Yep.
And I was just fed up of clients giving me, quite frankly, crap photos for them to put into my designs. Like if I was to do back then using Dreamweaver and all that, to do websites and do brochures with beautiful designs and then have substandard photos. It was like, no, let me just take them for you. So the photography was supporting the design, and it's just interesting now how design supports the photography. And what I could hear from a lot of website designers now, not so much now with AI, but there was a lack of good, high quality stock food photos, where it was not just one strawberry. It was a suite of strawberries that all had the same lighting, the same quality, the same treatment, same everything, so that designers and website designers could build something without having this disparate look.
Yeah.
Right? Because that doesn't create trust.
You're trying not to edit images. You're trying to use something that's in the space to build.
Yeah. So I thought, right, I'm going to create my own iStock for food only, but it's going to be Australian based, not American, so, and there is a difference. You can tell a difference between, Middle Eastern food photos and American food photos and Australian food photos. Have a look next time. Might do a thing on that. Pick which one's which.
That'd be a good social media post.
And so the small business grants came out, and I went, yep, had a chat with my my graphic designer and web designer friend, Nat, and who was on the other week. And she said, yeah, that's a great idea, because what I did also is I isolated the true shadow. I didn't just slap on a 50% grey. I created the shadow so that it wouldn't matter what you put that cup on, piece of grass or anywhere, it looked as though it was
supposed to be there.
It was it's a true shadow. And that's not something that was easy to do. It had to be developed, and it was something that I sort of coined. So we did that. But I'm not a tech person. I'm a photographer. So building something like that, I learned very quickly that you needed to really be a coder.
Yep.
So if I had the idea as a coder and then I employed a photographer, well, that would have made more sense than a photographer trying to create something that's, the back end was huge,
So how much time did you put into actually building it?
We ended up doing it over probably 8 months.
Yep.
It really invested, and I would say probably 75% of my time was going into food stock at that time. And I remember being in a car with a friend, and I said, I think I'm going to have to let it go. I'm just spending too much time. It's not getting the money that I need. I'm going to have to let it go. And I said, so what's your exit strategy? And I went, huh.
So were you live and running?
It was meant to be subscription because that's what I wanted. I wanted passive income. I wanted subscription. I wanted it and as it built, then I might bring on other photographers to add to it, all this sort of stuff, right? And it just wasn't picking up. And I went, okay, this is just too hard. That was one of those brick wall moments. It was like, I'm hitting my head. I'm doing everything I can. And so I reached out to Ozstock. Ozstock is an Australian stock photography library, and so we partnered, and I said, I'll give you all my gallery that I've got now, high quality, blah blah blah, and as long as I'm an exclusive photographer for you, blah blah blah. And that's how we did it. So I basically merged with Ozstock.
So it was pretty seamless.
It was seamless because they already had the platform.
Yep.
So why am I trying to create a platform that they were already invested in? I just might as well go back to doing my photos.
So take out the double handling and do what you really enjoyed.
Yeah. And it was the most hardest thing I think I've done because you had to admit that you failed.
Yep.
You know, I had to tell my husband that, yes, I've spent this money and I've spent all this time and it's failed. And I think that was one of the biggest things because in my eyes, failure is not an option. I don't
know anything about that.
No, because when I called Dad, the mum's second husband, I always looked up to him that I needed to prove to him that I was enough.
Yep.
And to fail at something was like, no, you don't do that. So luckily I'd have done a lot of self-work on myself at that time for that not to absolutely cruel me, because 5-7 years prior to that, if that had happened, it would have been a different story.
Which probably leads well into our next session we're talking about, which is the mental health side of things. Because you talk about 5 to 7 years before to that point in time where you were handling it really well. How did you manage to keep yourself grounded and through that experience?
I do a lot of personal development constantly. I just devour audiobooks. I go on leadership programs, the Australian Rural Leadership Program, all these development, Money and You, Women's Network, all these sort of things. It's about how do I keep building my knowledge.
Yep.
And I had to actually sit with the fact that some people you put up on a pedestal. Now that's me putting them up on a pedestal. They didn't ask to be put on a pedestal. That was me doing that. In talking to myself, if I was a younger self, I said, what right do I have to do that to someone? Why should I put them on a pedestal when I'm now expecting them to perform in a way that they did not say that they were going to?
In the first place.
So then when they disappoint me, I get all huffy and all that. And it's like, well, realistically, that's not something that's real. So I think from a expectation of people, I can only expect how I can respond to something. And I had to really look inner to go, how am I responding to these situations in business and these people and how it's impacting me? And it was a good mirror. Everything's a mirror.
And especially that side is hard. I mean, I know when the pressure comes on with me, you know me well.
Yeah.
I put the square boxes around. I go, right. I just pull it in myself. I go, I'm just going to go forward. I will deal with it later, which is not the healthiest thing. But then usually I do it in a quiet space. I go and open. I go and play talk to Teela or got some cricket balls or something like that. And just get it out of my system. But that's probably mobbing what you would call my self-care. I know I'd find in my ways of doing it. I know you have a really set number of ways, and one of which is in the garden.
Yes.
But you have other bits and pieces.
Yeah. and like you said, you set things, you put it over there in the box, and that's probably what I have down on my notes, that I have a innate ability to compartmentalize things, and I think it may be a protection mechanism. So like, for example, like to the extreme, there was a time when I know things were really hot over in the Middle East, and Sonny was there, and you didn't know if he was alive or not. You're waiting for that call, and because that was the days of when it was MSN, like dial-up. You can't just get onto Facebook and go, "Are you okay?" You had to dial-up.
MSN logo.
So to be able to survive, and and I had young kids, so to be able to survive that, you had to put that in a box and get on with work. I still had to work. I still had to be a mum. I still had to look after the house. So I think I have that ability even now in business. If a whole lot of stuff's going on, if I've got a client, if you're my client, well, you're my focus. Everything else can just wait.
It's one of the hardest things that I find teaching is in this mental health space. One of the most difficult parts is the world does not stop.
No, it doesn't.
And you can't control that.
No.
So that's how I developed the box, going, I will deal with that later when I've got the time to do it, because right now, if I don't do these things, a whole other bunch of things are going to fall down.
Yeah.
And it's
the domino effect. Yeah. So I think that comes from also independence, because before I met Sonny, I relied on a lot of things, and then he went away, and I had to become the alpha of the house. I had to do everything. So you find your way when you do that. So I think that was important. And also the self-care now is my garden, my Pilates, I go out for my walks, I paint. So anything I can actually disconnect. Because when you paint, you can't think of anything else. You try painting and then start thinking about something logical. You just can't do it.
You asked Jamie Lee about me painting stick figures, because that's all I could do until Tila turned up.
Yeah. So painting's a really good one, because it does something to the brain. I probably need to have a look at it and why it does it, but it switches something else off, and it only allows you to concentrate on that. So I think that's really good. But
how hard was setting boundaries?
For myself or other people? Yeah.
Look, and to be honest, they're almost one and the same, because you have to do it to yourself to be able to set it to others, and that's me.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, because some people see, when they're in their own journey, they see self-care as a luxury. They go, "Oh, well, aren't you lucky that you can go for a walk? I don't have time to go for a walk." Well, make time. So
There is always time.
There is always time, and it is about priorities and what it means to you. So sometimes it's basically saying, this is important to me. It may not be important to you, but you need to understand, I need to do this for me. Otherwise, I can't be a nice person.
No, and putting yourself first is one of the hardest things to do, because human nature, especially to people pleasers, it's hard, because you want to bring everyone in and save them all and help them.
I think it's a lot easier now that the kids are older and they're out. We're empty nesters.
Yeah.
So
Not jealous yet. Don't turn over.
You sure?
Don't turn over.
No. So I think that's a big difference now. We're empty nesters, because I can tell you right now, I certainly did not put myself first when the kids were at home.
No.
Growing up with two that have their own challenges, you always put them first. It's just what you do as a parent.
Networking. So one of the things you've done really well in the Toowoomba scene is you are connected with almost as many people as I am, if not more. Yeah, you are. But it was never your superpower, so to speak. You talked earlier about being in the call center and being told to go networking. How have you built the tools to be able to walk into that room, meet people, not either hide in the corner or go and stand with all the people you know?
I remember pitching an idea to travel to Penang. Was one of my first Foodie Shots projects that I wanted to do. And I had it booked. 12 of us was going to go over to Penang, and we were going to do food photography, cooking classes, because I used to run cooking classes with Foodie Shots as well. And I had yoga, art, everything. And I was pitching it at a Canvas co-working pitch night. And I learned my pitch word for word. I practiced in front of the mirror. I learn it. I knew it. And I get to present my pitch on the night and I just blank.
Yep.
And I can't remember his name, but I know he was obviously someone quite important here in Toowoomba, so that doesn't look good. But anywho, and he came up to me and he goes, "Kat, I can see your passion. It's a great idea. You just need to learn how to communicate." He goes, "My best advice to you is to go to Toastmasters."
And that's what I did at school.
And I went,
Mother made me do it.
yeah, it was the best thing ever, because with Toastmasters, you learn how to do pitches and 30-second, introductions, and then 2-minute presentations and all the different ways of communication, persuasive, you're motivational, you're influential, all those sort of things. So it's probably my biggest tip to anyone that is starting out and they just don't know how to communicate and talk. And I still have to learn how to communicate in different ways and practice other ways of how to say things and get my message across, because sometimes my passion just gets in the way and I go, "Oh, what if we do this and what if we do that?" And I'm like, just temper it down.
Let's not scare them too soon.
Just chill. So I think that was a big thing. And also just going to all the different network. Toowoomba is amazing for networking. You could have dinner, breakfast, lunch and tea nearly Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Right? There is no excuse for you not to be able to practice networking. And I think that's the thing. When I buddy up with someone I know that's new and hasn't, when they go to chamber or they come into a group, I go, "Who do you want to try and connect with? And can I suggest you go and find 3 new people you don't even know? Go get 3 business cards that you don't even know." Because you give them a challenge, most people are quite competitive and they'll go, "Okay, I can do that. I can go get 3 business cards." So it starts there.
So one of the things I question everyone on a little is there's a big difference between networking, trying to gain business, and there's networking, building a relationship. Now, one of my things is that if you're going networking to try and build business, people will read you from a mile away, and especially experienced ones will almost go, you can see them pulling the shutters down as you're walking up.
Yeah.
If you've got to give advice to someone who thinks they're going to go and do business, but it's all about the relationship build, how would you help them build that relationship to be able to have the confidence to ring them the next day and say, "Would you like coffee?"
And I think I said it when I was writing my notes. I said, if you are going to a networking event to sell or to actively get new clients at that networking, you might as well turn around, because, as you said, they'll smell it. You go to those networking with a hat of curiosity, and one of my biggest ways of getting over how to get over that nervousness is if I'm coming here to talk to you, I want to be in service of you, because if I'm helping you, it's not about me.
Yeah.
I take that hat off of it's all about me and you're looking at me and looking at me. No, I want to know how I can help you. And therefore it takes off that edge. So I think for anyone that's going in, it is. So tell me about what you do. It's like, well, how can I help you? This is what I do, and just sparking up those conversations, because
just learning a little bit about them.
Yeah.
It's interesting how even some of them you say to them, so, married, kids, what do you do outside of work? And they kind of look at you like,
what, you actually are interested? Like,
some of my best friends come from networking because it's the relationship I enjoy, because that means you're on a similar level because you are all there trying to build.
Yeah. And I think that you can tell the genuine ones. I think one of my beautiful clients recently, she actually wrote that in her review. She goes, "Kat doesn't sell. She just asks you for your story, talks to you, engages, and then she just lets you know that she takes photos, and all of a sudden you're in her studio." Like, it just becomes a conversation. And it's literally, if that's the way a lot of my clients come around, they go, "Oh, so you actually do this type of photography too? Oh, well, I need that." Well, okay. It's okay.
One of the funny things I've watched you do is when you meet someone, you find out a bit about them. I can almost see you pulling out the string because the pin goes there. Oh, actually,
You need to go talk to
you
him.
need to go talk to that person. And then you need to go to the person. And that string gets over there. Next thing, there's about a huddle of that 5 of you talking to this new person.
So
who's
come over here. You need to come and talk to
this
him.
person, this person, this
Yeah.
person.
You need to come and talk to him.
You're what I would call a compulsive connector.
Yeah. And I've actually turned clients away. They've been in my studio because they think that they need me. And they talk to me because they've just started up and that I go, so have you got your packaging? Have you got this? Have you got that? And they go, no. I said, well, you need to go and talk to this person, this person, this person, and then come back to me. You know, and that's a risk. I could have easily taken their money,
Yeah.
right? But I can't do that. Like, no.
Because you personally wouldn't have delivered what?
No.
No.
No. Just go away, go talk to these people, build that relationship, and then they come back. So that's important.
Wonderful. Now, we're getting into the back end of the show. Now, I'm on to the bit called, What Do You Wish You Knew Earlier? So basically, if you could look at something and go, I wish I could put my hand on that question and answer it 5 years ago, what would it be?
Never assume and always ask the questions. So I think it's about never thinking that I know what you actually need. It's about asking you, tell me a bit about what's happening, and then going deeper, because it's all surface level. Quite often it's surface level. Yeah, but why do you need that? What is it about why do you need photos now? Oh, because I've got old ones. So how long ago? And they go, 10 years. So why has it taken 10 years? And they go, this, and this. And you unravel all the reasons and the self-doubt or whatever has happened. And you go, right, now I know where you've coming from. Now we know where you want to go. This is how we can get. So by asking, never assuming that I know what you need helps me to then ask the right questions and develop. So
look, and it's a very hard thing to even teach yourself to ask the right questions, because we have it here. I have people who we just go, look, I don't think you're quite your person from what you're looking for. Look, and it's part of life, you know. It happens in dating, relationships. Everything we do is sometimes, as you talked about your mum, she worked out the couple of these people weren't quite the people she was looking for, and they'd eventually find it.
yeah.
Being on the hard way. I talk about hard way moments, and you've talked about being quite blessed and everything in front of you. If you could stop and go, that was the moment that I knew that I was doing it the hard way and pivoted. What was your hard way moment?
I think always, for a long time there, I was always seeking validation, that I needed others to say that, yes, you're on the right path. When really, I knew deep down, if I could just trust myself and stop outsourcing my own intuition and relying on other people's opinions so much. So I think, and once you actually really sit with who you are and where your purpose is, that guiding light. Someone said to me at a leadership conference, we were sitting around in a focus group and we had to do our strengths and everything, and it was about the third day. And this guy, we'd only known each other for 3 days, and this was before my exhibition at the lighthouse, so keep that in mind. He said to me, Kat, you are a lighthouse. You guide people with your energy. And he didn't understand the profound impact that those words had on me.
Always feel the
coming
off in your head.
Like, it was like, oh my God, like I'm just about to embark on something that's I'm immensely proud of and I've never done. And he is calling me the lighthouse. I'm like, oh my God. Like,
did you sit back and just actually breathe out a little? Because you're like, wow.
No, I burst into tears, but that's okay.
That's okay.
And so I think, I just needed to stop relying on other people for validation.
It's very true. If you don't believe in yourself, no one will.
No, that's exactly it.
Well, now you're on to the book of questions.
Oh, okay.
Now, Brad from Fitzy's put the last question in here. I don't know what it is. You get to read it and read it out loud.
Oh.
And once you've answered your question, you get to write your own in.
Okay, so I've got to read out his.
You got to read out his and answer. If you're from around here, chances are you've worn something that we've embroidered, printed, pressed, or branded. Whatever it is, we just get it done. So if you need something, drop in and see us.
Oh. What would you do or try if you knew you couldn't fail? Oh.
If there were no limits, what would you do?
That is a really hard question.
Look, he smiled a bit too much when he wrote that in the book.
Brad, I don't like you. What would you do or try? I would actually probably open up a... What if I did like empowering women on a world stage?
Take it around the world.
Like, yeah.
How amazing would that be? And you're picking 6 women in each country you go.
And they get all done up and they all get, yeah.
How amazing. And think of the lighthouse moment we just talked about. You
Yeah.
think about that in every single country. So you need to write your question and your name underneath it.
Okay. Well, I feel like I need to be mean like Brad, but I can't do that to people.
I think you'll be absolutely thrilled that he made you think.
There we go. Okay.
Done. Close the book. Get it away.
Okay.
So this is the bit where we get to talk about what's coming, what's next, what's happening. What's Foodie Shots doing?
So there's a bit of... I've got Sonny and Kat. I've got Foodie Shots. I've got Kat. So yes, I have a little bit of identity crisis. But in all seriousness, food people that come to me, they only know Foodie Shots. People that are in services and need headshots, they only know really Kat from Sonny and Kat. It's friends that actually get confused because they're like, you're everywhere. So I'm like...
I just follow Kat. It's easier.
But the heart of me is still around food, and it's really projects like the soup box, which is it probably sums up everything that is important to me, because it's about food, it's about community, it's about building those relationships with businesses, it's about helping businesses to shine as well. So for those that don't know, soup box came about I think it's 3 years ago now.
Yes, 3 years.
3 years. And I was at a networking event. Funny that. And Nat Sparrow from Base Services was in there, and he was a bit cranky. And I said, "What's up, Nat?" And he goes, "Oh, some hooligans, they broke into our cool room and they've stolen meat and produce out of it. And not only that, they left it open, so everything's spoiled." And this is just before, I think it was like
I remember his Facebook post. You could have at least closed the fridge.
Could at least close the fridge, right? And I was so angry, and I said, "Oh, what are we going to do about that? How can we get the food, and how can we do that?" And I looked at his face, and I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm getting on my soapbox." On my soapbox, and I went, "Oh, soup box. What if we got the Toowoomba farmers markets, and because I was part of the Chamber's Food and Agri Network at that time as an advisor, and I went, and we got Chamber, and we got several businesses around." He goes, "Kat, I haven't even had a coffee. Just
Steady on your left.
I left that breakfast. I went straight to Chamber, spoke with Todd, and I said, "I've got this idea. What do you reckon?" He goes, "Sounds fantastic. I reckon we need this, this, and this." So then I called up a few other businesses, and I said, "We need a marquee. We need some marketing, blah, blah, blah." And they all just came on board. Everyone, again, it was just tell the story, the purpose, and they all came on. And the benefit of it just ran for it runs for about 5 weeks. The first time it ran for 2 months because the lead up and everything. But what it is, businesses can come and stand on that Saturday for 2 hours. They can wear their bling if they want and promote them that they're actually doing something for the community.
Michael's actually stood in there, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. And give some time to the community. And I love it because Toowoomba has a very generous heart, and there's lots of events on that are high ticket prices. Like we have $1 million events.
Yep.
But not everyone can go to those. Not everyone can actually be part of that. Yet I can guarantee 99% 99% of the community want to be part of something bigger. So this soup box enables you and I to go to the farmers, buy from the farmers so it supports them, and then use that produce to fill up the boxes at the soup box.
Yep.
Those boxes then go back to those base services where the trainees, who are also disadvantaged people, are actually able to cook and feed 100 plus lunches each weekday. So there is really this beautiful circle of generosity.
The thing I love about the circle as well is it's not this really big expensive thing.
No.
It's that you can go and spend $10 on fruit and veg and go and put it in the box. You can go and spend $100.
Yes.
You're contributing whatever way you do.
Yes. But it's still the act of giving, regardless if it is a box or a carrot. It's still that good feeling that we have as a human, that knowing that we're helping someone else. And I think that is the beauty of it. And what I'd love to see is that actually replicated in all communities around regional. Like, there is no reason why this can't be replicated.
Absolutely.
So I'm putting it out there to everyone. How do we make soup box cookie cutter out there in the community, around Australia, everywhere?
Oh, whether us bringing it to the end of the podcast, that'll be the thing. As well as following us on all the social medias, have a think about the soup box. Send us a message. How do you think we can replicate the soup box, even in regional towns, to make it easier for everyone? Thank you, mate. This has been great. It's been a really good chat. It's gone well. We've covered a lot of.
We haven't talked much about photos, but anyway.
I think everyone's got the hint. So if you haven't picked it up, you can follow Foodie Shots. You can follow Sonny and Kat. What's the third one? I'm missing one.
Well, you've got Empowered by Light, but that's Sonny's one.
That's Sonny's one.
Yeah.
There's plenty of ways to find Kat if you need photography. Obviously, go and look up the soup box because it's a very important thing.
Yeah.
Please follow The Hard Way. You can find us on YouTube at Hip Pocket Workwear. You can find us on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Ladies and gents, thank you very much for watching The Hard Way.
Thank you.